All right, so this is my question. As we watch a lot of reality TV, and most of them are young adults in their 20s, some are even in their teens, and I'm starting to see. Well, I'm not going to say starting to. I'm seeing a trend with a lot of entitled, self-absorbed. It's all about me, young adults in this world. And you have to look at them. You look at them and you frown, like, oh, these kids today are horrible. Where do they get this shit from? But I try to look back a little bit and say, why do we seeing so many of them in this generation? And it comes from the parents. There's a common thread that the parents of these millennials, Generation Y, Generation X, I don't even know what generation we're up to, but they come from the parents. And the trend I see here is that parents bubble wrap their kids. They all treat their kids.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, they do. Like, they're so fragile. Like, they can't discipline them. They can't tell them they're wrong. They can't tell them that they need to do better. Like, they give them, they applaud every little thing they do. It's just like we talked about this the other day. Like, they're the reason that this generation of children don't respect authority, have no work ethic, don't understand the rules of society, and just believe that everything is due them, and that they just woke up in the morning, and because they woke up, the world should bow at their feet. Right. Why do you think that parents of that generation have done that to their children, seeing how they grew up in a generation where their parents didn't raise them like that?
Well, I don't think that they grew up in a generation where their parents didn't do that. I think we're dealing with I was listening to another podcast or something with Charlemagne where it says we're dealing with, remember the episode where he said she cuffed him or whatever that term was? Mm-hmm. And he said we're dealing with the baby mamas' deeds of their kids. I think we got to a point where kids were having kids, and in terms of, I understand that this has been an age-old thing in terms of people having kids very young. It's not a new thing. Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of the mentality of back in our parents' day, even if our parents were having kids at 16, 17, they were still forced to kind of grow up a little earlier. They were a little bit more responsible. I think the kids that were having kids in that kind of Generation Y period, they was more lax in terms of what they needed to do, and so their education wasn't as important to them. They either wasn't doing as good in school anyway, and then they hung with a flock that was still, they were having kids, so it was okay, and it wasn't shame because Shaniqua got a kid and Keisha got a kid, so I'm good. I'm pregnant. We gonna all roll. And they were the ones that kind of dropped out of everything, didn't really go on to be anything, and they're the one that's raising these are their kids. So they didn't raise them well.
You think that generation? Because you look at us, right? We're in our late 30s. Our parents are in their early 60s. Mm-hmm. So the kids we're talking about are people, even kids in their 20s. So if you figure a kid in their 20s now, their parents are probably our age or older. Mm-hmm. So you mean it's our generation that dropped the ball?
No, it's the Y generation, the ones right after us.
Okay. So the kids who are born in the 80s or the 90s?
Yeah, in the 80s.
Because I feel like everybody in our generation
in the 80s are in their 20s now, right? 23, 25.
Yeah.
So yeah, dumb motherfuckers.
But their parents were born. You're talking about kids who were born in the 80s now are the fucked up ones. But their parents were born in our time or earlier then.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it would be I guess maybe it was a part of our generation that screwed it up. Because
I feel like right now, most of our friends have kids. Some of our friends have kids that are almost 20, right? We have friends, if you had your kid when you're 19, 20, your kid is 20 years old now.
Yeah.
Then you have friends who have kids who are 10, so maybe they waited till they were 30 to have kids. Right. But I feel like I'm talking about the late teens to the early 20s, because them motherfuckers are out of control. The ones on a reality show and Vanderpump Rules and stuff.
Then it has to be TV then. I think they saw the generations of the Sweet 16 era, and people kind of being gifted for things that they didn't really earn. Okay. And I think that entitlement you see on TV a lot kind of transpired into real life on a different level.
So you think it's the media? So you think it's the media?
Yeah, I think you see people emulate it. I think people are influenced a lot by television, although I guess more so than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the entitlement that they saw running rampant on the earlier TV shows, like I said, Sweet 16, then maybe MTV, whatever the MTV
Cribs and shit.
Yeah, I think that was probably where they kind of stopped working for anything and just figured, I'm gonna, figure out a way to be fabulous, and the self-esteem, like you said, everybody was, I'm the shit type thing.
Yeah, it's so like this. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's great. Yeah. Nobody's told about themselves. I mean, we grew up in a generation where, like, we were, and I'm not saying beat, like, I was never beat hard. I don't have that story where I had to go out in the yard and get my own stick and beat myself. But, like, I got disciplined. I got hit, and it got to the point where I didn't have to get hit anymore. But my parents had instilled fear in me to the point where they don't have to hit me.
Right.
But I just think, like, that we just, and especially in certain communities, like, I mean, it's always been like an ongoing joke. White people don't hit their kids. Black and Hispanic people beat their kids. But we're seeing Black and Hispanic people here who are of the mind frame, like, I'll put my hands on my kids, like, and I'm like, when did the breakdown happen? Huh? What'd you say?
Also, they want to be their kids' friends.
Yeah, that's another big point. That's a good point. It's about friendship.
That also makes the lines a little blurry in terms of authority. Mm-hmm. So if you have a parent, someone that you're supposed to be looking up to, kind of being on your level, you're going to go outside and be like, I'm going to talk to you like I talk to my mother, because I'm used to talking to my mother like that and telling my mother this. So teachers, I'm going to talk to you a certain way. You know what I mean? Strangers, I'm definitely going to talk to you a certain way because you're not feeding me. No, seriously, that's also, because I think we didn't come up with that kind of disrespect. We left whatever we were supposed to, the slangs and the cursing, if we were cursing, on the outside. Our parents never knew we did that. But now the parents curse at their kids, the kids cursing in the house. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more on the same level.
Yeah.
Too. That also spoils it, I think, for why they think they can come in and, like, because look at these girls on DVS just talking to the older women, like, they just don't know how to take direction. And the minute that you tell them anything, they start crying. They
cannot stand criticism. That's a sad thing when you can't be told about yourself, because you'll never be better at anything.
Without crying at that.
Yeah.
That was the last thing you did in front of anybody, even if you wanted to cry. You sucked it up and you figured it out.
Yeah.
Now, crying stops everything, because then now I got to stop and wait for you to gather yourself, or I got to tell you something to make you stop crying.
Make you feel better.
Something positive behind what I just said, because I can't just discipline you and just you eat it and then fix it and figure out how you're gonna make things better. I got to now stop and go, why are you crying? Well, you're a really good person. I got to now...
Yeah, I got to soothe you now. Because...
I got to counter it with something nice so you can stop crying.
Yeah.
When did this become... This is like a tactic now.
Yeah. It's very pathetic. And like you said, that the on DVF, like you said, that one girl's like, Diane von Furstenberg doesn't get me.
I was like, what?
Bitch, she don't have to get you. You're supposed to get her. That's why you're there.
And... if someone that doesn't know you has an opinion on you, it's not their fault. It's your fault. It's your actions.
That's what you projected.
Is why I can't make up things about somebody I don't know.
Yeah.
So why are you like, I feel she thinks I'm this person that I'm not? Who's giving her that idea?
Yeah.
She's a grown woman. She's millions of years. She's like 20 years older than you.
Yeah.
And you mean to tell me that her mind is not developed enough to be able to assess things? And you think she's wrong about these things?
Well, see, the problem is there's no self-reflection. There's never a moment where, what did I do wrong? Or what am I doing? What am I projecting to other people? It's so easy. And I think, and this is what parents come back into it. It's so easy to come back with this. They don't like you because this. They're jealous of you because of that.
Exactly.
And it's like...
my parents never said that to me. Oh, I never heard... It's just so interesting. Yeah, the parents also are kind of soothing them like they're haters or they're jealous.
Yeah, especially once the word hater came out, that became the catch-all phrase for everybody who doesn't like you is a hater. Right. Everybody who criticizes you or calls you on your bullshit or anything, anybody who doesn't kiss your ass is a hater. You know, and that thing is just, it drives me crazy. But I'll tell you, my father used to say that to me when I was a little girl. they just don't like you because you're pretty, or they don't like you because you're light skinned. Like he would say shit like that to me, and I mean, I never really ate it up because my mom wasn't of that mind frame. But I always, maybe I'm just a very self-introspective person, so I'm always thinking, and I'm always thinking, like, it can't be that. Like, it's got to be something else. And I'm starting to think, what did I say? What did I do? You know, and sometimes it's not you, and sometimes it is you. But you have to take the time to figure out which is which.
Right. You can't just trump everything up to the same thing.
Yeah, it can't. There's a common denominator. If every chick I run into don't like me, it can't be, they can't all be jealous of me. Right. It can't all be because I'm light skinned. Like, it just doesn't make logical sense.
Yeah.
And the problem is that people don't care about logic. They just think of what's easy and what makes them the most comfortable. Because it's easy to say I'm fabulous and I'm beautiful. That's why they don't like me. Now I don't have to look at myself. I don't have to look in the mirror. Yeah. It takes the accountability off of me entirely. Yeah. And that's what this generation is all about. But the parents are the ones who are feeding it to them.
There's no self-reflection.
There's no self-reflection whatsoever. And then part of it, too, is I think back in the day, people used to work at a job for 20, 30 years. So you're going to run across people who are going to tell you about yourselves. But because you had to stay there, you had to fix your behavior, or you had to at some point look at yourself. But now, because people jump from a job every 2 years, 3 years, I don't like my boss, I'm going to move over here. I don't need to look at myself because she's off the list now. I'm on to the next one. And when she does decide she don't like me, I'm going to move to the next company.
Right. Right. People are not, it's like one of those things where you can't, people are in a world where they think that they can do what they want to do. And if they can't, then they keep, like you said, they'll keep moving until they can.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's just saying, well, I know I can't do it. I can't do everything that I want to do, and I'm going to have to eat some of the things.
Yeah.
You know?
They keep jumping around until they find a situation where they can do everything they want to do, or at least most of it. And it's just they never look at themselves. And I have to blame your parents because at some point, you know, and again, our generation and generations before us, it was more like, you come home from school, the teacher said such and such. Well, if the teacher said it, it must be true. Now,
exactly.
That wasn't always the right response. But again, parents, adults align themselves with other adults.
Yes.
And they trust it. If the teacher said you did it, you did it. If Miss Jones down the street said you did it, you did it. And that was the end of the discussion. But now kids are able to pit their parents against their teachers and their parents against this adult and that adult. And everybody's ready to fight for their kids. And I wish he would. And, what are you teaching your child?
Yeah.
That when you don't like something, it's time to put your fists up.
That's exactly why the kids are the way they are now, because those parents it was too hard to sit down with another adult and kind of figure out. Because you know what? If you sat down with the other adult and talked about what your kids was doing, then that was a reflection on you.
Exactly. You might hear some shit you don't want to hear.
Exactly. So parents didn't want to do that, so then it was easier to tell their kid to go against a teacher and side with their kid, because it meant that they didn't have to deal with anything that they were doing wrong as parents. Yeah. Everybody's always shifting the blame somewhere.
This is my formula. And it goes back to math. I know a lot of folks aren't good at math these days, but it's about the common denominator. If you're the common denominator in all these situations, then you have to look at yourself. If I get kicked out of 5 schools, it can't be all the schools. If I fail 5 classes, it can't be the 5 teachers. If I can't get along with 4 coaches, it can't be all the coaches. At some point, you have to look at yourself. And to me, as a parent, that's love. When you want to improve your child, let's look and see what's wrong here, because nobody's perfect, and see how we can improve it. But if you just keep giving this child the image, the idea that they're perfect, they do nothing wrong, then there's no room for improvement.
Yeah.
And then what you have is a 30-year-old in the body. I mean, you have a 14-year-old in the body of a 30-year-old.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
And that's not healthy. And if you love your children, you don't want that for them.
Yeah. People are growing old, but they're not maturing.
Not at all.
At all. That's exactly what's happening. People are definitely not maturing. People are still
they're stagnating.
Stunted. Yeah.
And we see it every day. We see it with our friends. I have friends who I look at like, you're the same person you were in college. Same exact person.
Yeah.
You look a little older. You may have kids. You maybe put on some weight, but you're the same person.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be the same person you were, 20 years ago. You shouldn't be.
No. And they're proud of that.
Oh yeah.
They're proud to be still. I don't know what that is. I'm keeping it real, or I don't know. I don't know what they think it is, but it's not. It's not something to be celebrated. It's not something to be all right. But some people are just complacent and have no clue.
Yeah.
You're supposed to always be ever evolving and learning new things and challenging yourself. And, you know, yeah, you should always be
trying to be a better you. But I think part of that is the circle that you keep. You know, if you're in a circle of people, like they always say, you should never be the smartest person in your circle. Right. You know, you should never be the most accomplished person in your circle. Like, because if you do, you have nothing to strive for. But if you keep the same circle and you don't let anybody else in, if you keep, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having friends from back in the day, but if you keep riding with the same 5 chicks you've been with since junior high school and you don't let anybody else in, it's just the same thoughts are being circulated around your group over and over and over and over again. Yeah. Nothing new is coming in and nothing bad is going out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just not passing it on to their kids, and they're not. Your job as a parent is to make a better life and a better society, and that starts with your kids. And if you're gonna raise shit kids, then they're not gonna do anything.
They're not gonna bring nothing to
society.
Yeah, they're just gonna take and take, just like so many of them are just taking.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to me, that's part of the selfish thing about parenthood is, you know, if you don't want to make your children have a better life than you did, or you don't want to impart wisdom on them, or if you don't want to, you know, take them to a higher level, then why are you even having children?
Well, a better life is a different definition that we give it to. A better life to other people is she's going to have better looking sneakers, live in a better looking place. If I didn't have a car when I was 16, my kid's gonna have a car when she's 16. You know what I'm saying? That's their idea of a better life. And it's not about contributing to anything or them, you know, becoming any smarter or you know what I mean? It's just gaining more things and money and stature.
That's true. You hear them say it all the time. I want them to have everything I didn't have growing up, you know, but to me,
it's all material.
It's material. And like, I look at this, like, you know me, I'm on the fence about kids in a lot of ways, but the one thing that appeals to me about having children is imparting all of the wisdom I've learned the hard way onto them so that they don't make the same mistakes and so that they can be who I would be if I knew what I knew then.
Yeah. The hang-ups of being pretty, the hang-ups of self-image. I learned so much that I wouldn't impart. How you speak to other people, how you know what I mean? How you validate other people. I would pass that on because I know better now in terms of how you know, just coexist with other people.
And what's gonna lead to your real success in this world? You know, how are you gonna get there? I mean, those are the things, those are the jewels I want to pass on, not my diamonds or, you know, my Louis Vuitton bag. Like, that's the shit. That shit is irrelevant. It's about the things
thinking outside the box and challenging yourself if something academically is challenging for you, instead of giving up or instead of beating yourself up, like I may have done, or stay away from certain things I know I wasn't good at it anyway. I would encourage them to investigate and figure out how can I get better at something. Yeah. Those are all things I would pass on because I know better now.
But, you know, but then again, some people don't know better now. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. They're, like you said, they're the same person they used to be, so they don't know much more other than, you know, a couple of little tricks they picked up along the way, but nothing that really, even if they had it to do over again, they probably wouldn't do better because they didn't really acquire much knowledge.
Yeah. It's sad.
It is very sad. And we're going to stop here and pick up on part 3.
All right.